Hi everybody, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Hallmark Plus More, where we watch and talk about shows, movies, mysteries, Hallmark ornaments, and anything else that floats our boat. So today I'm going to be reviewing a Hallmark Christmas movie. It's called Private Princess Christmas. So before I get into the review, I want to say thank you to everybody who subscribes and watches my videos. I appreciate you more than you know, so thank you so much. So this movie, the main character is Princess Violet Bell, and basically she lost her dad last Christmas, so you can tell she's still kind of getting her footing from that. But she's making a lot of mistakes, and her mom, the queen, doesn't think she's ready to step into being the queen. So she basically sends her to this holiday leadership boot camp in America. So, she's somewhere in Eastern Europe, I believe, this country that she is the princess of. So she's going to America to go to this leadership boot camp. And then the other people in the boot camp with her are rich kids, which is hard for me to relate, right? I mean, I have difficulty getting food on the table and taking care of my family. So, we all struggle with that, I'm sure. So, I obviously cannot relate to these kids. One of them is a duke from India. Another one is a K-pop singer, a football player, NFL football player, a daughter of a billionaire tech guru, and then the last person there besides Princess Violet, of course, is a Bitcoin. I guess he kind of swindled everybody in a Bitcoin scandal, kind of like a scam where he took people's money. So all of the characters here obviously come from wealth. So, like I said, right off the bat, that's not something that I can relate to. I struggled just like everybody else to provide for my family. So, I was like, okay, I have to be able to get into this movie, right? Because I can't relate to it. But it was definitely different because I liked being able to see them go through boot camp and kind of learn more humility and generosity, and what Christmas is all about. So I do like to see those transformations in movies, and I feel like Hallmark really does that very well. So, you really do fall in love with these characters, even though at the beginning, like I say, it's kind of hard to relate to them. But you do, as the movie goes on, you kind of understand, we're all human, whether we have money or we don't have money. We all have feelings. We all go through, depression. We all go through denial and approval of their parents. You can even see that struggle. So, I mean, obviously money can help in a lot of ways, but at the same time, there's so much that money can't help with. And I feel like, in this movie, they kind of explore those other things. So, and again, tells you what Christmas is all about, which I love because I agree completely. It's not about money or gifts. So I definitely like that part of the movie. I liked what they called the shredder, the obstacle course, and then the falling from grace, which was the trust fall. So I liked getting them, kind of watching them develop or, have that progress throughout the movie as they get better. And of course, form a team, because that's what it's all about, is relying on a team, relying on your family, and having that kind of that circle around you, because you have to have somebody to help encourage you and believe in you. Everybody needs that, whether they admit it or not. Everybody wants that, and you kind of see that in this movie. And you see each person in the boot camp leaves grace. So every time they have a meal, they have to say grace. And you can see throughout the movie, each one has said grace. And you can kind of see how they develop through what they say during grace. So I always thought that was a cute little side note, that throughout the movie, you've got 6 people, different meals saying grace. And then at the very end, you see Violet say grace. embrace at the very end at the Christmas dinner. But you see a side of Violet that you didn't really see. I mean, throughout the entire boot camp, she's cheating, right? You're not supposed to have your phone. She has her phone. She calls a moving company to move the tree so they don't have to walk the 3 miles with them. So she cheats throughout the whole movie, even with not allowed to have visitors. Her boyfriend, Prince Scott, comes. And she basically breaks up with them. I don't want to be rescued. Every princess wants to be rescued, And, Scott kind of says it like, yeah, well, duh, of course you want to be rescued. You don't want to stay here. And I think that was that light bulb for Violet. Like, yeah, actually, I don't need to be rescued. You need to leave. We're broken up. So, and as typical with every Hallmark movie, you see Prince Scott at the beginning of the movie, and of course you're like, yeah, she's that's not right for her. She doesn't need to be with him. He's not right for her. And then of course you see her break up with him. But then she has to sneak back in, right? And she sneaks back in to Captain Ryan Douglas's room, which is comical, of course, because he's talking to his mom on video, and she obviously sees a side of her captain that she doesn't see during the day in training because he's talking with his mom. So his guard's down, right? And so that was funny, them talking. And kind of opening up. I feel like he opened up to her and she opened up to him. Captain Ryan, he lost a friend, Benji, in Iraq, and he feels responsible because he was trying to protect him. Benji found out he was trying to protect him, and then he was like, I don't need protecting. He went to Iraq and was killed. Now, it's nobody's fault. It's not Ryan's fault. It's not Benji's fault. It happens. Unfortunately, that happens in war. But he still feels responsible. He still feels bad. So we built this bench basically in honor of Benji. And he kind of goes there to think. And you'll hear about this bench a little later on, but you kind of see a different side of him as well. And then you find out that Violet's father died last Christmas. So she's still kind of grieving, but her mom is taking over all of the duties now that the king had passed as being the queen. So, everybody grieves in their own way. Some people throw themselves into their work, which it looks like what the queen did. And she had responsibilities, not doubting that everybody grieves differently. There's no right or wrong. She's a queen. She had duties, but I feel like she kind of threw herself into that to help with the grieving. Princess Violet, she doesn't really, she's kind of losing her footing. She's kind of trying to grieve, but she wants her mom there for support and help. And, like I said, there's really no right or wrong. It hits everybody differently, and it hits you at different times. You know what I mean? Sometimes you think you're having a great day, and then all of a sudden you hear a song, you see something that's a memory, and you just choke up. So it happens. Grief is just one of those things that you never really goes away. You just kind of got to get up every day and live day by day. So, you see that a little bit. But then you see Violet pretty much doesn't want to deal with it anymore, and she says, okay, fine, I'm gonna quit. So she quits. She takes all of her luggage. She's walking to the airport. She sees a car stuck in the snow, drops her very expensive luggage, I'm sure, and runs to help this man. Doesn't even think about it. It's just an instinct. She wants to help them. It's the goodness that's in her. She just saw somebody in need and wanted to help them. She tries to talk to him through the window, and he's deaf, and he's trying to sign to her. And then Violet, she just signs back. So I didn't, who knows, she knew ASL. She's just sign language. She's going back, I'm going to help you. And he's like, thank you. And she puts her backpack or one piece of her luggage underneath the tire so that he can spin out, and he leaves. But Captain Ryan sees her do that. He drove because he didn't want her to walk to the airport. So he says that to her. He kind of boosts her confidence, like, you're a good person, you are a leader, you didn't think twice about helping that man. And, you knew sign language. That helps too. You have to be able to communicate with people. So, you kind of learn something about Violet. And of course, she decides to go back to the boot camp. And she goes back to the boot camp, and she gets along with the team. It's almost like she comes back and says, apologizes to the other cadets and says, look, this was my fault for cheating and not doing this. And I feel like they really kind of bonded after that. And they still had their little squabbles, but I think that's part of being a team, right? Is as having that little bickering, but then, stopping the arguing and agreeing. So they really started to come together after that. When she was in Ryan's room, they were really talking, and she opened up about her father, which I thought was a really sweet moment. And like I said, Captain Ryan had his guard down. They mentioned Die Hard again. I don't know why they keep doing this. I'm going to let this one go because he's military. But I'm like, seriously, why do you guys keep talking about Die Hard in your movies? But she mentioned The Sound of Music. So I'm going to let that little Die Hard, reference slide because you talked about Sound of Music, which is one of my favorites. I have a ton of favorite movies. But Julie Andrews was so amazing in Sound of Music, just like she was amazing in Mary Poppins in the other movie that I mentioned. So she was mentioning her father would sing Edelweiss just like they did in the movie. That's one of her family traditions that she thinks about at Christmas time. They would watch The Sound of Music every year at Christmas. And Captain Ryan's like, it's not really a Christmas movie, but it was a Christmas tradition for your family. They would watch it together. And then her father would sing Edelweiss, which is, if you've ever seen Sound of Music, which I hope you do. If you haven't, it's amazing. Andrews is amazing in that movie. But it's a very touching moment, when he sings Edelweiss. So when she said that, I was like, oh, okay, I will forgive Hallmark for the Die Hard reference because you spoke about Sound of Music, which is an amazing movie. So you kind of heard them both open up, which was a sweet moment. And probably a turning point in this movie in, their friendship. So, after they get back, with the team, one of the events that they do is they sing Christmas carols at the center. And the center is also where the gentleman was. He was an older gentleman. He's at the center. So as they're singing, Violet is signing the words to this gentleman so he can hear what, they're singing. And I just thought that was a sweet moment. You recognized the gentleman that you helped in the snow. Now you're singing carols. You see that he doesn't really know what you're doing, what song you're singing. So she signs it as she's singing it with her cadets. And I thought that was so sweet. And then they kind of mingle. And then Captain Ryan plays on the piano and sings Edelweiss. To me, I that was one of the moving parts of the movie. I mean, I loved that when he sang it, in honor of Violet. He even said that. He says, I know this isn't necessarily a song people sing at Christmas time. And then he starts singing Edelweiss. And my heart just melted. And I think it just brought me back to the actual Sound of Music, because in the movie Sound of Music, when he sings Edelweiss, he gets a little choked up as he's singing it because it's such a vocal point in the movie. It's like he realizes it's no longer Austria and it's being taken over by the Germans, and he gets choked up when he starts singing it, and the family comes out and helps him finish singing the song. So to me, that's one of the touching parts of the movie. I get choked up every time I watch Sound of Music and he starts singing Edelweiss, and then he gets choked up, and then Andrews comes out, the kids come out, and they finish singing the song with them, and it's one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie because it's so touching to me to see that bond that they have surrounding their father and singing this beautiful song that means so much to the father in Sound of Music. So to see in this movie, it means a lot to Violet because her father sang it at Christmas, and then Ryan singing that, as a tribute to Violet's dad. It was just a touching moment for me. That sold the movie for me. I was like, okay, I forgive your Die Hard reference because of what you said with Sound of Music. It was beautiful. If they ended the movie after him singing Edelweiss, I would have been fine. But they go back and have Christmas dinner. They go back and have Christmas dinner, and that's when Violet says grace in front of everybody. And there's also a touching moment with Violet where she gives her phone to one of the other cadets, Noel. She's the daughter of the billionaire tech guru. He works a lot, obviously, making his billions, but he also has a new wife. So the daughter just feels like her father is never there for her, and she just wants that confidence to speak up. Like, hey, Dad, this is graduation. I want you to come. Well, my wife needs me for her bridge group, and she's like, really? That's more important than your daughter graduating? And Violet gave her the confidence to kind of speak up to her dad. And I think that's very important because you could kind of see throughout the whole movie that this particular cadet was kind of insecure and, kind of felt needed that self-confidence, and I feel like Violet helped her with that, and that's part of the reason why she got kicked out too and not graduating was because they found the phone. Ryan was like, is that a phone that you're using? And then she broke the bench, and that was very sentimental to Ryan, so he basically kicked her out and then decided that she could graduate. So there was a little bit of conflict and drama there. But the last part of the movie, which, like I said, it could have ended with Ryan singing Edelweiss because that was beautiful. But it also ended with She Fixed the Bench, which, like I said, was very sentimental to Ryan because it reminded him of his friend Benji who died in Iraq. And she put a little, little plaque on the bench that said, in memory of Benji. So I know that was very touching to Ryan. And then, of course, in typical Hallmark fashion, they kiss at the end and boom, that's the end of the movie. But yes, this was a different movie for me. Like I said, it's more difficult for me to get into a movie when it's about people that's hard to relate to. You're talking about spoiled, rich kids, and a princess who's like, oh, my handmaids do this for me. And can you do this? And very spoiled as well. So, but you did win me over. You definitely won me over with all of the Sound of Music references and the Edelweiss. It was beautiful. And if you haven't seen Sound of Music with Julie Andrews, you have to. She's amazing. It's a great movie. But yes, so for that, you kind of won me over with this movie. And the acting was great. It really was. Like I said, you kind of had to believe the characters. So what I loved about it is what I've been going on and on about. Love the Sound of Music references. What I dislike, obviously, the Die Hard reference again. Hallmark, come on. And given a hard time getting into the characters. I wish, they would explore Captain Ryan a little more, maybe ended the movie with his family coming too. And also, she had the courage to call her father the Noel, the daughter of the billionaire guru, but he didn't show up. So I know that's realistic, very realistic, but, you would have wanted her to have a happy ending. She finally speaks up to her father and her father shows up because I don't think they saw him in that last scene. So I'm glad she spoke up to her father, found that self-confidence, but it's just sad that he didn't show up. I did believe them. Like I said, I can't relate to them, so I believe that they were spoiled brats. And I thought that storyline was great. Believing that they really were who they were and the little bickering and forming as a team and depending on each other, which is great team building, having that confidence and relying on one another. So the overall feels, you made me feel great about this movie because of the Sound of Music. I think the big score for me was having Ryan sing Edelweiss at the center. That was amazing to me. I love that. However, it wasn't my favorite Christmas movie. Like I say, I'm definitely not a fan of them throwing in all of these references with Die Hard. So for this movie, I will give it 4 gold crowns because I loved your Sound and Music references, and the Edelweiss was great. So yes, so for my Gen rating, I rate this movie 4 gold crowns. So I hope you enjoyed my review. I hope you enjoyed the movie. And until next time, bye.